The ocean didn't need monsters to break the men who tried to conquer it. It had chemistry. In the 1500s, as wooden hulls cut through the uncharted Atlantic, sailors began to witness a terrifying celestial fire erupting from the black waves, a neon, ghostly glow they called the Burning Sea. To a superstitious mariner, this was a divine barricade, a warning from the abyss that they had crossed into forbidden territory. But the true horror wasn't a spiritual gatekeeper. It was a massive, liquid cloud of microscopic predators engaging in a form of chemical warfare so advanced it could dismantle the human central nervous system in a matter of hours. The warning wasn't a metaphor, it was a literal biological keep-out sign written in neurotoxic light. As these 16th century caravels sliced through dense blooms of bioluminescent dinoflagellates, they weren't just creating a light show.
They were shattering the cell walls of trillions of organisms, triggering a massive aerosolized release of brevetoxins and saxitoxins. This is where the biological siege begins. These toxins are among the most potent non-protein substances known to science, sodium channel blockers that function like microscopic wire cutters for the human body. As the sea spray hit the deck, the sailors didn't just see the glow, they inhaled it. They tasted it in the mist. They absorbed it through their skin. Within minutes, the invisible antagonist began its journey through their bloodstream, seeking out the electrical pathways that keep the heart beating and the lungs expanding. To understand the sea madness that plagued these early voyages, we have to look at the visceral sabotage occurring at the molecular level. Saxitoxin doesn't cause a fever or a rash, it causes a total electrical blackout. The toxin molecules bind themselves to the voltage-gated sodium channels in the nerve cells, effectively jamming the signal. Imagine the nerves as high-speed communication lines. The toxin essentially cuts the power to the entire grid. The first symptom, recorded in frantic captain's logs as the touch of the drowned, was a sudden, ice-cold numbness in the fingertips and lips. The sailors believed the sea was literally turning their blood into salt water. In reality, their peripheral nervous system was being silenced, one neuron at a time.
This sensory deprivation created a terrifying biological vacuum. When the brain stops receiving signals from the body, it begins to invent them. This is the forensic explanation for the legendary sirens or the calenture, the madness that drove men to jump into the abyss. By 2026, forensic reconstructions of these historical mass poisoning events suggest that the combination of neurotoxic inhalation and acute dehydration created a state of total sensory inversion. The brain, starved of accurate electrical input, began to project peaceful, lush landscapes onto the lethal reality of the open ocean. Sailors didn't jump because they were suicidal. They jumped because their poisoned neurons convinced them they were stepping onto a sun-drenched meadow. The sea madness was a biological hallucination, a side effect of a brain being chemically disconnected from its physical shell. But the predator's reach didn't stop with the air.
The very food that sustained these crews, the fish following the ships, acted as a secondary, more concentrated delivery system for a toxin known as ciguatera. This is where the tension of the sea becomes truly brutal. Unlike common bacteria, these toxins are heat-stable and undetectable by smell or taste. A sailor could catch a fresh grouper, cook it over a galley fire, and unknowingly ingest a biological weapon that reverses the body's perception of temperature. Traces found in bone fragments from the 16th century maritime graves reveal the chemical signature of this chronic poisoning. To the victim, cold water feels like it's boiling. A cool breeze feels like a blowtorch against the skin. History tells us of crews who mutinied because they believed the ship's water was cursed or that the wind was possessed by demons. They would scream in agony during rainstorms, desperate to escape the liquid fire falling from the sky.
This wasn't a lack of discipline. It was a physical rewiring of the human hardware. The deadly warning written in the sea was a chemical perimeter that the 1500s mariner was fundamentally unequipped to understand. They were fighting a war of wood and iron against an enemy that fought with molecular geometry and electrical interference.
The climax of this biological ruin was always the heart. Saxitoxin is a relentless seeker of cardiac tissue. In the final stages of exposure, the toxin reaches the sinoatrial node, the heart's internal pacemaker. The rhythmic pulses that drive life begin to stutter and skip. To the men on deck, watching their shipmates collapse, it looked as if the sea was stealing their souls. But the forensic truth is colder. The wires were simply too clogged with toxin to carry the spark. The heart didn't stop because of fear. It stopped because the microscopic predator had successfully cut the power. Why did these explorers ignore the neon fire on the waves? Because they mistook a biological weapon for a decorative miracle. And by the time they realized the difference, their nervous systems were already being reclaimed by the deep. The sea madness wasn't a slow descent into insanity. It was a rapid, structural collapse of human autonomy.
While the air on deck was thick with the scent of brine and toxic mist, a second, more insidious front was opening within the very wooden veins of the ships. In the 1500s, the concept of a sterile environment didn't exist. The damp, dark holds of Spanish and Portuguese caravels, soaked in the runoff of the burning sea, became accidental incubators for a chemical synthesis that science is only now beginning to map. The porous wood of the hulls absorbed the neurotoxic blooms, trapping the toxins in a humid, oxygen-deprived vacuum. This created a concentrated off-gassing effect that turned the sleeping quarters into gas chambers. The sailors weren't just encountering the predator in the water, they were living inside its lungs. This environmental saturation explains why the madness often struck entire crews simultaneously, leading to the eerie phenomenon of ghost ships found drifting with every soul on board dead or missing.
Forensic pathology points to a terrifying chemical synergy: the inhalation of aerosolized saxitoxins combined with the ingestion of ciguatera-laden fish. In the human gut, these toxins don't just sit, they are actively transported to the liver, where the body attempts to break them down. But the molecular structure of these marine poisons is designed to resist heat and acid. Instead of being neutralized, the toxins are metabolized into even more potent derivatives that target the blood-brain barrier.
By the mid-voyage point, the crew's internal chemistry had been fundamentally altered. The tinso intelligente here lies in the sailors' own preservation methods. To keep their meager food supplies from rotting, they used heavy amounts of unrefined sea salt, salt harvested from the very same coastal regions where these toxic blooms originated. Modern analysis of 16th century salt pans reveals that neurotoxic cysts can remain dormant and viable within salt crystals for years. Every meal was a fresh injection of the madness. They were seasoning their path to destruction with the very weapon that was hunting them. This led to the climax of the biological siege, the total loss of the command center. As the toxins breached the blood-brain barrier, they targeted the hypothalamus and the medulla oblongata. These are the ancient parts of the brain that control the involuntary miracles of life, the rhythm of the heart, and the reflex to draw breath.
This is where the legend of the sirens finds its brutal forensic anchor. The victims didn't hear music. They experienced auditory hallucinations caused by the misfiring of the vestibulocochlear nerve. The song was actually the sound of their own nervous system short-circuiting. The brain, unable to process the lack of sensory feedback from the numbed limbs, created a frantic, beautiful narrative to explain the darkness. The biological irony is that the more the sailors fought to stay awake and alert, the faster the toxins worked. Increased heart rates from fear and exertion only pumped the poisoned blood faster into the cerebral cortex. The curse was powered by their own survival instinct. Traces found in 2026 through advanced mass spectrometry of skeletal remains from shipwrecks like the Santa Maria della Rosa show high concentrations of calcium channel interference, a direct result of chronic exposure to these fire seas.
The sailors' bones were literally recording the chemical signatures of their own neurological demolition. The 1500s mariners stood on the deck of a technological marvel, armed with compasses and charts, yet they were biologically defenseless against a translucent fluke and a glowing microorganism. They viewed the ocean as a map to be filled, never realizing that the map was already occupied by a predator that viewed them as nothing more than a temporary carbon source.
The sea madness was the sound of a billion-year-old defense mechanism meeting a 500-year-old ambition. It was never a fair fight. The ocean didn't need to rise up in a storm to stop the age of discovery. It just needed to change the chemistry of a single breath. We are left looking at the glowing wakes of our modern ships, wondering if the madness is truly gone, or if we have simply forgotten how to see the fire before it enters our lungs.